Can you work and homeschool? Yes, you can. And today I'm going to share 5 tips to help working parents who want to homeschool.
I was all alone, but then you came along.
Welcome to the Home Educated Mind. I'm Erin Berry, and today we're going to talk about working parents and homeschooling. And I'm going to share 5 tips. We're going to talk about scheduling, curriculum, support, help, pacing. Well, actually, it's timing and flexibility. So let's begin with tip number 1, scheduling. After you check your requirements for your state, and that's important because they're going to require a different number of days and potentially hours for you to homeschool. Some states are very lenient and they don't require anything. Some have more strict rules. But if you're thinking about the schedule for homeschooling, you can generally think about 180 days a year of teaching instruction and about 4 hours a day. Now, that is the general, but it's actually a little bit less if your children are young. For kindergarten, it can be just about an hour. And early elementary age, it's about 2 to 3 hours. Then 4 as you get older, and sometimes high school could take a little bit more depending on your student. But if you think in terms of 4 hours a day, that is probably a great marker. And when you think of that, think 4 times 5, that's 20 hours. All right, now as a working parent, that's much more doable to think about how can I schedule 20 hours versus if you're thinking in the traditional sense of 9 to 3. And this is what's really important for a working parent. You are looking at your schedule and you're fitting all the pieces. You're fitting the pieces of your work day, your family requirements, your sleep, don't forget that, that's part of it, and of course your schooling. But if you think of it as about 20 hours, then you can think, oh, I could do this much at this time. I can do it in the mornings, I can do afternoons, I can do evenings, I can do weekends, and all of a sudden you're freed from that schedule that we are used to with the schools. And that's just much more doable. You know, I have a friend who homeschools and she works, and what she does is she schedules from 7:30 in the morning to 9:30 is when she does her teaching with her children. Then she has somebody come in at 9:30 and she goes to work where she starts at 10. So that's thinking a little bit outside the box, isn't it? But it works for her. Another parent could do the opposite, where they work first and school later. All right, so the pro tip for this scheduling is consider what you're already doing that's academic and how does that fit into your homeschooling, or how can that count as some of your hours. And what I mean by that is, you know, for example, if you read to your children every night before they go to bed, well, that's 30 minutes times 7 days. What is that, 3.5 hours? If you've got reading time, so if you chose strategic books during that time, if you were studying, ancient history and you had your reading books at night sort of about characters or situations that go along with that topic, now you've just made something you're already doing part of your homeschooling. Tip number 2, schedule all year round. Not only do your times of the day that you teach get to be flexible, but you can even have your annual schedule changed. Nobody says you have to teach just 10 months out of the year. As a matter of fact, that was probably based on the fact when we were more of a farming community. And since most of us aren't in agriculture anymore, it makes more sense that we would teach all year round. Plus, that allows you to have a more consistent schedule working alongside your work schedule, and allows you to pace a little bit slower, which will take some stress off. And that's really important because, students have been experiencing a lot more stress and anxiety and depression. I have a friend who's a doctor, and a couple years ago we had a conversation where she was saying she was giving a lot more students, younger students, meds for these problems. So this is a great way to alleviate stress because you have more time if you take it on an annual schedule. Plus, there are other advantages of having an all year round schedule. One is off-season vacations. So you can choose to go on vacation when it suits you, when it suits your work. If you're like my daughter who works in an industry where the typical holidays are her most intensive times, well, it's nice to have the option to take vacations when it works for you. Plus, you might get some off-season costs. The second thing is potential for even more spaced breaks. We kind of do all of our schooling with a little bit of breaks and then a long summer, but you could have a schedule where you have 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off, or whatever works for you. And you could have a longer break at the end of 1 year before the next, 3 or 4 weeks. But having that evenly spaced break, again, just gives you a nice flow. And with that comes less learning loss. There's your alliteration for the day. Less learning loss. So because you don't take those long breaks from learning, you actually can keep a flow. So if they have done math at the end of 1 year and have a shorter break and then come back to math, you're not losing what they've learned and having to reteach. Review can be much easier when you start that next year and you get right into that learning. Now, there are some cons for the all-year school schedule, and it's the summer camps or swim team or other camps that are available. Or if you have a teen, and what if they want to work and do a summer job? How do you work that with homeschooling? Well, first of all, you don't have to think of learning as just in a book. And so these camps that are available in the summer are excellent academic resources and can really help your program, and your child can get a whole lot more than just being at home. And as far as a job works, well, they could work all year and work less time, or they could work in the summer and pull back their academics a bit. But really, if you look at the timing, I have a section in my book, I have a quote from somebody that, Laura Vanderkam. She writes on this, and I love what she says, and this has to do with your student. She talks about the fact that, once you kind of wrap your head around the idea that we don't have to follow the traditional scheduling and pacing that we know of, it really opens lots of ideas and makes a lot of sense. And she says, you can work 40 hours, homeschool for 20 hours, sleep 8 hours, which I like, and that you still have 52 hours for other things. The key is moving the pieces around. So your student, if they really only have 20 hours of required schooling, that leaves 40 hours working and 52 hours of free time, not even including their sleep time. So it's totally doable. And my pro tip for this section really is that you have the flexibility to be able to do learning not just through books and benefit from this kind of schedule. All right, tip number 3 is curriculum. When you're looking for curriculum, because you have a lot going on as a working parent, you want to choose curriculum that is less parent involved, that has less requirement for the teacher for you as the parent to be heavily involved in leading everything that's being taught. Because really, you've got to think realistically about your schedule and what you're available to do and what you will do. So you don't want to commit to something that you can't follow through with. And most children's instruction consists of direct instruction and then either monitored work or independent work, right? They're working on their problems or working on whatever it is they're doing, and they just need access to ask questions, or they're just doing independent work, and when they're finished, they come and show you. So you can think about, well, what amount of time do I have to do that direct instruction? And then how can we manage that independent or monitored instruction time? And going back to my friend that worked full time, and she taught her kids from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning, and then she went off to work. Well, she had somebody come in and monitor that time. Her kids already had the assignments and they could ask this person the questions, but she still retained the majority and the bulk of the leading and of the teaching, and she just had that person assist. So again, when you're looking at your curriculum, you want to think, what can we use that will not overtax me? Now, the pro tip for this section is check in daily with your students. With all that you've got going, it's very easy for a student to slip between the cracks. And as a matter of fact, even if you're not working, this is a great tip. I actually had a student in a class that I taught, a one-day-a-week class that I taught, and the student came to class and she had done no schoolwork that week at all. And she was like 8th grade. And she actually kind of told me a story as to why she didn't have her work done. So then I talked with her mother and I said, yeah, I understand this was happening at home this week and she didn't have any of her work done. Well, that mother's face just got white. First, what the student had told me happened at home did not happen. And second, the mother did not catch that she got nothing done. But here's why. She had 7 children. And that student just knew how to sort of fly below the radar. So really, you need to check regularly. And let me just say that that mother did that after that, and that student had every assignment completed for the rest of the year. But just keeping that accountability, checking in, will really help you stay on track. All right, tip number 4, support and help. You don't have to teach everything to your children. As a matter of fact, when I homeschooled, I used to think about myself as managing my children's education. You can hire tutors, you can join co-ops, you can hire an older homeschool student to help out. Your spouse can teach, your parents can teach. You can incorporate online classes, and particularly now, there are more options than ever. Certain curriculums like BJU and Abeka, even the Well-Trained Mind, all have academies or classes that you can take, plus there's lots of other online schools. You can sometimes do a whole curriculum or just choose a course or two. There are also other online platforms like OutSchool that offers any class you can think of, they offer, and then online tutoring companies as well that you can hire to help assist in specific subjects. And I even have a calendar that you can check on our website because I offer tutoring for all ages, all classes, all subjects as well. But today, as I said, there's just so many options that you don't have to feel the pressure to cover everything. And actually, it makes homeschooling really fun. But here's the pro tip for that. Because there's so many options, we can have a tendency to overschedule our kids. And you don't want to do that. Getting back to our stress discussion earlier. So just pick 1 or 2 of these outside things to add to your class for your student to be able to help assist you as you're teaching them what they need. All right, tip number 5 is protect your time and be flexible. Try to limit your distractions when you are teaching your children. Again, as a working parent, you have a lot going on. So when you are teaching, make that time really focused and be deliberate. Turn off the phone. Be away from your computer. Let people know you're not to be interrupted so that you can fully focus and fully be present. But you do have to be flexible because life happens and you might get that emergency call or you might get that email that you have to attend to. So be prepared. Set yourself up for success so that when those distractions come up, you have some resources available for your children so that they have things to do so that time won't be lost. Maybe have some activities that they only pull out during, if your teacher gets pulled out of the room, special books that they read, or even online games or other educational games, so that if you get pulled out, maybe they don't have anything to do, maybe they've done the things that their independent work, you can say, hey, play this game for a while, practice your spelling on this app or whatever. And that way you'll feel good, you won't feel bad when you have to leave, and you'll know that their time is being used well. And here's our pro tip. Along with that, beware of the internet. Since we use technology so much today, we use it for our education, we use it in entertainment, we use it for communication. Our children can end up spending a lot of time on the internet, wasting time or getting involved in things that we don't want them involved in, and it can kind of suck away from our time with them. And especially if you get called out to do something for work, they can go to that internet and it can just really rob from what you're trying to accomplish. So maybe have a plan for that as well, where you take up their phones or you limit access just to make sure that you're getting the best use of your school time. All right, well, those are my 5 tips for working parents who want to homeschool. I hope you've enjoyed our time together, and that in closing that you can see that it's very possible for you to work and homeschool. And we at the homeeducatedmind.com are here to help you. We have our book, Yes, You Can Homeschool, The Terrified Parent's Companion to Homeschool Success. We have our self-paced parent equipping course. We have our online community for families and parents and educators. And of course, I offer private consulting and tutoring. And we are just here to help you and to support you so that you can effectively homeschool your children. I trust you found this information helpful, and please let me know your feedback and takeaways in the comments below. We appreciate every like, subscribe so that you can be notified each time that we release content. So thank you again, and remember, yes, you can homeschool.